You're listening to Booth Talk from the After Movie Diner, and what's exceptionally exciting about this episode is that it features a returning champion. Our guest this week first appeared on the show 6 years ago, and when he was on first time around, we talked about the fact that he was president of the United States of America in the Marvel Universe. He was also appearing in the sequel to Robert Rodriguez's Machete Kills, as well as talking to him back then all about his 80s and 90s action work, things like Hard to Kill and Die Hard 2. Well, this time around, Mr. William Sadler, star of stage, TV, and the big silver screen, is going to be talking to us all about the new film VFW from director Joe Begos, where he gets to star alongside, similarly to him, some veteran character kick-ass actors such as Martin Kove, Stephen Lang, Fred the Hammer Williamson, George Wendt, and so many others. It is a John Carpenter-inspired punks versus old veterans, and it is a complete, fun, gory, mad romp that we are going to be suggesting everyone go and see. We also talked to William all about his turn in the fantastic miniseries When They See Us, directed by Diner favorite Ava DuVernay. And we get into the long-anticipated and soon-to-be-released Bill and Ted 3, Bill and Ted Face the Music, in which Mr. Sadler reprises his role as the Grim Reaper. So we get into all of that. It's very exciting to be speaking to him. I feel like we speak to Bill every few years when he is just about to do some more amazing work, or has just done some amazing work that people cannot stop talking about. So I'm going to stop talking now, and we're going to hand it over to this fantastic conversation we had with none other than the amazing, the awesome, and the always lovely Mr. Bill Sadler. Hello, Bill.
Yes, John.
Hi, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me all right?
I can. Yeah. Are you just on a cell phone in a hotel room?
That's what I'm on.
Yeah. And you're up in Toronto at the moment, you said?
I am.
What are you filming up in Toronto?
It's a miniseries, a two-part miniseries for CBS called A Higher Loyalty. I'm not sure what the title's going to be at the end of the day, but it's based on James Comey's book, A Higher Loyalty. And I play Michael Flynn, the former secretary of, or a national security advisor who lied to the FBI and is now looking at jail time, I think.
Oh, wow, yeah. So it's another kind of pertinent true story sort of thing, kind of similar to...
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, very...
Hot off.
Well, it just feels right now that the news is trying to write the most harrowing miniseries it possibly can every week. So, yeah,
I know.
It's difficult to engage with.
I'm astonished. I mean, we're all kind of watching with our jaws on the ground. You know, the impeachment thing that's going on. I don't know how you write. I mean, he said this is old news already, practically from 3 years ago. I can't remember the scandal from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know. Lots of people have tried to talk about it, and every time I try and sort of wrap my head around it, it just sort of it spirals away from me. And it can be while incredibly important to kind of focus on it, it can also be incredibly detrimental to be that kind of outraged and angry the whole time. So you just have to kind of find some sort of weird middle ground.
Exactly. Well, I'm pretty sure the country's going to get through it. one way or the other. There are too many decent folk, that I'm sort of counting on it. if the impeachment does, we've never had a situation like this. We've never put someone in the highest office in the land who has no regard for the law or the rules or the precedent or the dignity of the office or just about anything. So
yeah, it's sort of very odd, and certainly having lived here, because I've lived in the US now for 12 years, so I came in just at the end of Bush. I saw Obama's inauguration, and then I have seen this whole shebang on this end as well. Like, I remember as I moved to America, we were in the midst of the John McCain Obama election with Sarah Palin and that whole mess. And we just never thought that anybody would, let alone be voted in, but anyone on the world stage would be of kind of Palin and Bush kind of level again. How we don't learn our lesson, I've no idea. And I'm not even talking about politics. I'm just talking about the people, just the humanity of it. This blows my mind.
Spectacular. Anyway,
yes.
That's what I'm doing in Toronto. I'm doing this miniseries for CBS.
Well,
and playing an interesting general who's now in trouble.
Yeah, of course. No, that's fascinating. Always interesting to inhabit a real life person. And I have good family up in Toronto. I've got lots of cousins up in Toronto, and I'm a big Maple Leafs fan. How do you find the city? Do you like the city?
I love Toronto. I was up here a few years back for a pretty long stretch. I filmed a series called Wonderfalls.
Yeah.
Up here, that was that I love the series, and the people who got it, the people who said, I think we only lasted half a year or something, or maybe it was one whole season, but it was ahead of its time, and it was very funny. No, I love Toronto's fantastic. It's growing at an astonishing rate.
Right.
I mean,
yes,
I recognize now that I've come back. I can't believe. I think there was something like 600,000 people lived here when I was here last, and now it's like 6 million people.
Oh, wow! Yeah.
It's just. I mean, it's become this huge city.
Well, it's a fantastic place, and I need to go there more, definitely. One day I'll see. I've seen the Leafs play in New York, but I have not seen them play in the Scotiabank Arena. So, which used to be the Air Canada Centre, and I keep it. It's just confusing how they keep changing
the
names.
Play?
Yes, it is where the Raptors play. Yeah, my cousin's a huge Raptors fan.
I'm not. I don't follow sports very much. I'm more baseball than.
Yeah. No, when I came here, the only sport I really knew anything about was ice hockey, and a friend of mine that I worked with in New York got me into Yankees baseball, but that was about it. That was I haven't gone much more down the rabbit hole of sports, but
I've been coming to. I grew up in Buffalo. My family used to vacate. Every time we had a vacation, we drove up into Canada, and we would go up to the French River and stay at the Moose Lake Lodge and fish, and so I have childhood memories of this country. In fact, part of my family came from England originally.
Nice.
Scotland, and settled in Hamilton, Canada.
Oh right, yeah.
Before they emigrated to down into the States. So I have roots up here.
It's fun.
I really like this place. I've shot in Vancouver. I've shot in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I'm sold. Things get much worse.
Come up to Canada.
Yeah, let's come up here and fish.
Well, Bill, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show again. It's been just a little over 6 years. I was looking at it. You were last on the show, I think, in 2013, October of 2013. Yeah, when you had just done, you had Iron Man 3 coming out, you had Machete Kills coming out, and I think we talked Bill and Ted 3, but I don't think it had. I know they were still shopping it around at that point, but obviously it wasn't as solid as it is now.
Right. Oh no, it's very solid right now.
Yeah. No, I can't wait to get a little into that. I know you probably can't say very much, but I can't wait to talk a little bit about that.
Sure, whatever you like to.
But it's, as I said, it's been a little over 6 years, and I just want to say, because I rarely get the chance to kind of talk to the same person again in this regard, and I know we kind of follow each other on social media as well. But I just want to kind of say, support from actors like yourself for a show like this really does mean everything. And you were one of the first people like yourself to speak to us, and were so generous with your time. And so I tell everybody, when they ask me about, who have you spoken to and so on, I tell everyone you were a class act, and that they should support your work wholeheartedly, because you're fantastic. And last time we talked about the golden age of action movies, the 80s and 90s, where you played some very memorable villains. But now you're the star of your very own ensemble action movie, a sort of character actors Expendables, if you will, which is VFW. And I got to see a screener of it about a couple of weeks ago, and it just, quite rightly so, blew my socks off, as they say. Loved every minute of it. So tell us how you first became involved with the VFW.
Well, they approached me. The producers, Fangoria magazine, and the director Joe Bagos, and they told me they had this idea, and it's a low budget action thing, and I read it, and I thought, okay. And then they said, we have Stephen Lang and David Patrick Kelly, and as soon as I started hearing the names, that was it. It was I was going to do it, and to be honest, I didn't know what to expect, because I think we shot it in 18 days, in Austin, Texas.
Oh, is that where it was filmed? Yeah, I was going to ask where the set was.
Yeah, I believe so. And in this VFW, we shot it in a VFW post, and the whole thing most of the action happens right inside this, in and around this VFW post. But what was really remarkable was that we'd all worked with each other before. I did the first movie that I did, Project X, I did with Steve Lang. Before that, we were both in the Joe Papp directed Paul Rudd's Henry V in the Park, Shakespeare in the Park in New York City.
Yeah.
So we've been banging around together for just ages and ages. I had worked with Marty Cove in a show called Hard Times on Planet Earth. I knew him. I did a musical called Lennon with David Patrick Kelly. We sang and did all of John Lennon's songs in New York for ages. It was ill-fated. I mean, we rehearsed it for like 6 months and opened, and the reviewers... actually, one of the reviews, one of the big reviews, said it's a shame they had to lip sync to all of that music, because we played the music ourselves, and we sang it live every performance. But we copied them so well that this reviewer said,
thought you'd been lip syncing the whole time.
It's a shame they had to lip sync to all of that recorded music. And I was like, oh, are you kidding me?
That's got to be one of those times, good criticism, bad criticism, but one of those times where it's just inaccurate. It must just make you want to call them up and be like, print a retraction.
I didn't like it, or whatever. Say whatever you like, but get the facts straight. And that was it. And that was unfortunate. But anyway, so I knew David Patrick Kelly very well. I'd never worked with George Wendt before, or the Hammer. I'd never met Fred Williamson. But anyway, I said yes to the project because all my friends were going to be there. Yeah, and sure enough, on the set, we would sit at our chairs. We'd sit there waiting to shoot scenes, and the stories would just go around and around and around this group of. You remember when? Well, I was doing this, and it was just like it was like old home week.
Yeah, I was doing some research to talk about it, and each one of you has got a bazillion credits to your name. You've all been working, obviously, for many decades, but you've also all done just a ton of stuff. There's, I think Martin Kove has something like 285 credits or something on IMDb, and Stephen Lang is the same, and you're the same, and obviously the Hammer, while maybe not as prolific, has made a movie damn near every year and produced a whole bunch of them himself. So yeah, the breadth and length of your collective works is staggering.
Well, what happened? It was funny though too. I mean, what happened was the camaraderie. It was like we've all been in the trenches.
Yeah.
For years, for decades. So when you put us together to play veterans, these Vietnam vets, that camaraderie just sort of immediately spilled over onto the screen. We were joking together. We were so easy, and the ensemble was so much fun. Cracking each other up and ad-libbing and by the way, they're all pretty good actors.
Oh, they're all fantastic.
It's not really the Expendables. These are some really talented.
Oh yeah, that's why I said that the kind of character actor, the kind of talented actor, character actor version of the Expendables is sort of what I meant. Just kind of as a joke.
Right.
Kind of slamming.
So we get a chance. You really get a chance to sink your teeth into a situation,
Yeah, well, because when you go back to all those sort of 80s and 90s movies, like I say, you guys, and I think both you and I was looking it up. Both you and Stephen Lang have both worked with Steven Seagal, of course, on different movies. But all you guys were playing sort of either the villains or like the character role in the town where the action was taking place, rather than obviously playing the lead action star. But for us film nuts and for us little B-movie fans, it's great to see all of you guys kind of getting your chance to shine and have your moment quite rightly in the spotlight. And I think Joe Begos has probably grew up the way I did and probably likes all you guys for the same kind of reasons.
It seemed so. And he was, and I have to say, we even while we were filming there were qualms. We're used to bigger budgets, more. I mean, we've all done indies as well, but to shoot it, I mean, we all shared one trailer.
Yeah.
For a while, even. I mean, all of it. There were like 5-6 actors changing clothes in one trailer, which is sort of unheard of for a while.
And so
Joe holding the camera himself and crawling around on the floor, and it was shot in such a fast and exuberant way. It was amazing.
And I suppose like you were saying earlier, putting together the ensemble like that, that's the draw. And it must be, while there are probably, as you said, sort of frustrations and things about low budget and having everyone all in one trailer, or having a small set, or having a small period
like
of
that.
time.
You begin to worry about, have they ever made a film before? What's this going to look like at the end of the day?
But I'm sure, having obviously been on much bigger sets and had all the luxury, because a lot of you guys come from theater, there must be that fun of all being back, kind of like that backstage vibe, of all actors together, all doing it together, knocking about behind the curtains before showtime kind of thing. There must be that draw to it.
Yes, there was that. And there wasn't. It's interesting too. There was no, it's not a Tom Cruise movie or a Steven Seagal movie where there's one star,
right,
and everyone else just, plays their part, filling, in a supporting role. Everyone was. We were all in this trench together, and up to our eyeballs in blood.
Yeah. Talk about working with the.
Yeah.
No, I was saying, talk about working with like the effects. Some actors don't mind it, and some actors find the relentless kind of stickiness and foulness of the fake blood a problem.
I didn't mind the sticky. There was an awful lot of sticky blood. That's true. You mean the practical effect?
Yeah.
The thing is too, with actors of a certain age, that was what we did. Back in, when I started making movies, all the effects were practical. If you threw someone off a building, you actually had to throw someone off a building.
Yeah.
And if there was a fire in the wind, if the building caught fire, you had to, it was real fire. So that part of it I didn't mind. In a funny way, it makes it more real. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to pretend as much. There's blood on your hands. Things feel more real as well. I think that's part of the charm of the film as well.
Oh yes, definitely.
It was shot on film. It was, and all the effects are practical. So
yeah,
when that blood sprays, it really sprays.
And it has that wonderful throwback feel. I'm always in two minds about when a filmmaker wears their influences so heavily on their sleeve, because sometimes they can really pull it off, and other times you just think, oh, I wish they would be doing more their own thing. But the nods that Joe gives to, particularly the opening shots of John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13, the original one, in this,
right,
was so well done, and it was such a it felt like such a genuine homage, rather than just, oh yeah, we'll do this because it's cool. It felt like a genuine thing, like he was trying to capture an atmosphere that Carpenter had captured in his film, and he was trying to do it using the same building blocks, but it came across as something. It didn't come across as disingenuous, which so often homages can. They can come across a little bit heavy-handed, but this came across really well. Were you aware of a lot of those films that kind of Joe was either referencing or using, or were they not your thing?
Just sort of peripherally. I was never a big horror fan, but I think what you're talking about is, the reason that it works is because you do it honestly. You do it with everything you have. You do it with all the heart, and if you can fill it up, then it doesn't feel fake. It doesn't feel hollow, or it's just for show. I loved when I finally saw the finished film. at Fantastic Fest. I think it was the first time I saw it with an audience. I understood then what Joe was trying to do, crawling around on the floor, holding the camera himself, and because I don't watch dailies. I don't enjoy watching dailies unless there's something specific. I mean, some actors shoot the scene and then run over to the video playback immediately to check themselves. I've never thought that was a good idea, unless you're doing a funny accent or something and you want to see if it works. There are reasons to do it, but not just because what happens is you start directing yourself,
right?
You know, and I think,
or spending too long trying to kind of soften or change the edges of something that everyone else thinks is fine, but you can fixate on it. I'm a musician,
exactly.
And I do the same when I'm putting a song together. If a guitar line that anyone else would think is absolutely fine doesn't fit, I'll spend hours, days redoing it, only to probably ruin the song.
There's the energy that you hit it when you first hit it.
Yeah.
You know, warts and all. It was the first time. It was the first time in the universe that little run of notes went together. You know, that musical idea hit the record button, and there's value in that. There's energy in that.
Yeah.
You know, and every time you do it after that, you're judging it, you're changing it, blah, blah, blah. It's not to say that you don't need to, rehearsal isn't a good thing, but
yeah.
But I've worked with actors who I think I don't know what they're looking for, because the second take looks just like the first one. And
it almost feels, it almost feels to me that writing is where people should put the focus in terms of a second draft, a third draft, a fourth draft, a revision.
Yeah.
Writing should really be, once, in terms of performance, you want some beautiful combination of prepared, but that frisson of instantaneous performance that we were talking about before. You kind of want a nice meld of two of those things, I think.
Well, the best work when it's working for me anyway. I can't speak for other actors, but if I have a technique now at all, it's I learn it. I learn all the lines. I learn I learn the scene cold, but I don't have any. I try not to have any any idea of exactly where it has to go.
Right.
So that when you get on the set, it's an improv. I can forget the scene and let it come back to me in an improv. It's so that it feels like an improv.
Yes.
Everything about the scene feels like an improv. It's like that. That's the first time you said that. You've had that thought because you just had that thought.
Right.
It's hard to explain, but it's like you learn it and then you forget it. Just forget it and let it come back to you.
Organically.
Yeah, kind of organically. Like, whatever happens in the scene colors the next line. Because it becomes like a tennis match, you don't know where the ball's going to land.
Right.
You may know how the match goes,
yeah.
and you know how it ends. But I think it just has to do with making it believable, getting the audience to believe that that's the first time you thought that.
Yeah.
It's the first time you heard that line from your partner,
It felt like there were lots of moments in this film, especially in the bar, like you say, with this ensemble cast. It just felt like a lot of that was I think what Joe did so well was to give you all your characters, because you all have very distinct interests or distinct characters based on kind of where you come at things in the film. But then once you're all playing together, even before all the blood and guts and the circular saw and everything, even before all that, it was exciting. The movie was exciting. It could have just been, it's funny having George Wendt there, obviously, because it's all set in a bar, right? So there's that little cheers nod.
Right.
But
Right.
it literally could have been an episode of, Cheers, but set in a grumpy old VFW. And had that just been the film, I would have been more than happy. The fact that there were also mutants and action sequences and whatever, that was like an icing on the cake. But you guys acting, that was the real... Within 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, if this is all it is, I'm going to love it. Because it was just... That was the best thing about it for me.
But I think that's probably why, if the film works, I think that's kind of why it works, because you care about... You like these, these guys.
Yes.
You like them. Very quickly you figure out, you're comfortable with them. And if you can get the audience to believe just a little bit in the situation and the characters, then you can take them anywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's why. Yeah, I think the director needs actors like that can just sell it to an audience within... Because I think you only really get about 7 to 10 minutes in the film running time to set everything up before the craziness starts.
Before all the lunacy.
Yeah.
Before someone comes in with an axe.
Yes. So talk a little bit about doing... Obviously, it's a low budget, but I assume that there were stunt people there as well. But it does look, certainly, that you do a lot of the rough and tumble, just by the fact that your face is on the screen. So I'm assuming it's you, and they haven't done kind of digital face replacement or anything. Talk about kind of doing the rough and tumble elements of the film, and also your hero moment with the saw, because that was just... Oh my goodness, that was a leap out of the chair. That was a leap out of the chair and fist pump the sky moment for me. I was like, yes, go get him, Bill.
Well, it's funny with this group of actors too. There's a lot of there's a bit of macho still. Floating around. There's some testosterone around.
Oh, I've got to imagine.
And no one wants to be the guy who can't take a punch or break a chair over his back. Or, I think the Hammer. I think Fred said one time they said we want to break a chair over your back, and he said we'll get a stuntman, and Fred said. You can break the chair over my back. You're gonna do it once.
Yeah.
So get that fucking camera ready.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it my way, and we're gonna do it once. And there was a fair amount of that. It was like, if you're gonna throw me over the table, and they didn't throw me over the table. They threw some other guy over the table because I break now.
Yeah.
I don't want. We're all just a little bit, we're just a little older.
Well, the Hammer is sort of known for his reputation, and I mean that both with huge respect, but also with sort of a tongue-in-cheek. He's sort of known since day one when he was first doing TV and film, of his rules and his... I've spoken to him, I interviewed him on the show. I'm a big fan of his, and he's so known for that I feel like even at his age, he probably feels the urge to protect that reputation and that stature even now, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there were times on the set when Sierra comes running in and she's getting beat up by this guy, and Fred, Steve Lang is getting the shotgun. And, Steve Lang is going to be the one who takes the guy out, takes the mutant out. And Fred would turn to me and say, I wouldn't stand here like that. I'd go over there and kick that motherfucker's ass. It was like, Hammer would never stand here and let that happen.
Right.
I don't know how many times I heard that. Hammer wouldn't stand here like this.
Well, it was also a really interesting, I always saw it as kind of an interesting political stance, because it was sort of his thing of saying, I'm going to be the hero in the films. There weren't African-American heroes in the way that there were once those early 70s movies came about. And he kind of made this sort of very interesting, and yes, it's obviously machismo and ego and other stuff, but he made this very interesting distinction. If I'm going to be on screen, I'm going to get the girl, I'm not going to die, and I'm going to be the hero, because we need that in movies. And it's funny, obviously in the Marvel universe where they talk about, Black Panther being the first black superhero and so on, and Luke Cage on the small screen, you kind of say yes, but that's true and that's fantastic. I'm glad the generation now have that. But in the 70s, Fred was that of his day, so.
He was it. I know. I think, as I recall, I wasn't in on the conversations, but I believe he wouldn't do the movie if he had to die at the end.
Right. No, he doesn't. He doesn't do it, and it's interesting in this movie because they sort of hint that he does without actually ever saying that he does, which is like Dusk Till Dawn. He claims that you never see him die in Dusk Till Dawn. He claims that he's still alive. He might be a vampire, but he says you never see him staked in Dusk Till Dawn. To this day, he claims he's still alive.
It is really lovely, and he's and he is protective of that image.
Yes.
And that's what it is. I think he feels that once you let them sully that image somehow, it's you can't get it back. He has a lot. He has a lot invested in that.
Yeah.
And he was also a football star before that. He was so he could do all of the physical stuff, the action stuff. He could do that.
He was in the first ever Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He was in the first ever Super Bowl, and that's funny because Super Bowl Sunday's coming up. But yeah, Fred was in the first ever Super Bowl, I think.
He was amazing. He was very fun to have around the set. We just sort of got the group of us, because he's a bit older than the main part of the older ensemble.
Yeah.
He's just one decade or so beyond us, and I think in the movie we make him a veteran of the Korean War.
Yes, he is. Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
as opposed to the Vietnam War. And I love that Steve Lang says it's the same mud.
Yes, I love that line. That was a great line.
People die, same mud. Yeah.
I thought
but
that
anyway,
was
Fred was lovely, and Hammer would never do that. That was a constant refrain.
Yeah,
Hammer wouldn't do that.
Well, he had so many years, I think, making his own films that he probably, and he's like I say, he still does around about a couple of films every year, even on the low budget end. And it must just be like being on other people's sets once you've had whatever it was, 15 years of him producing and directing his own stuff. He must get a little antsy and be. But what I liked about VFW, and this goes for all of you guys, not just Fred, but all of you guys. Very often where they do a semi-action movie with older actors, in order to get sort of bums on seats, they have all these named actors, and then you go see it, and yeah, there's one or two scenes where they do a couple of things, but then the young kids come in and kind of do everything else. What I loved about VFW is once the craziness starts, you're all in it. all of you guys, all of the older cast members are in it from square one. And Joe doesn't sacrifice that. Yes, there's a couple of younger characters, and they actually work really well in the film, but he doesn't sacrifice it to say, okay, Hammer, you sit this one out, or, okay, Bill, you sit this one out, or whatever. You guys are in it from the get-go, and I'm a fan of you guys. I want to see you guys, kicking ass and taking names, and the fact that you all do in this movie made me endlessly happy. That was the thing I liked about it. They didn't sacrifice it.
I think that moment that you referenced with the saw, when I picked up the concrete saw or whatever that was, and wade into a crowd of mutants with it. That was they used that movie that moment in the trailer as well. I guess it's a good moment. I don't know. When we were filming it, I remember I looked at my club. I had made a club with spikes in it, and I looked at the club and I looked at the saw, and I threw the club away and picked up the saw. And they had put a felt wheel. They had put a felt wheel on it so that it could spin. You could actually like jam it into people. It's spinning, but it hurt. And there was a hose attached to it that just sprayed blood everywhere. it was just chaos, and it was.
So it was more chaotic and less. You didn't stand there and go, "Right, Bill, this is your hero moment," and you didn't get all psyched up. You just kind of went with it.
No, I didn't think that was my hero moment at all. And the stupid saw weighed about 90 pounds. I went to pick it up the first time, and it's like enormously heavy. It's a real concrete saw. Yeah. I had no idea they were that heavy. I was like, all right, we can do a few takes of this, but they about killed me doing that.
Oh yeah. Well, look, I tell you what, it comes off really well in the film, and it is your hero moment, and you should. It should definitely be part of any award you ever get from now on. It should be part of your award reel, most definitely. And they should just give you all the awards, Bill, to be honest. Anyway, because it is fantastic. So last couple of things on VFW, and then I want to chat about a couple of other things if you still have time, Bill. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I have a bit more.
So, as I said, you and Stephen Lang have both worked with Steven Seagal, and you said that you were kind of sitting around telling stories on set and things. Did you guys compare notes, or did Mr. Seagal never come up?
Oh, Mr. Seagal came up. I mean, I don't want to tell stories out of school, but yeah, he came up.
Good to know.
There were lots of stories. Mostly they were about catastrophes that happened on sets, and I was just surprised. It was amazing to sit there and listen because Hammer would tell stories, and then Steve would take, some days Steve felt talkative and he would carry on and hold court and tell stories, and then I would throw a story in, and then over to Marty, and it just went on and on and on and on. It was more fun. They should have filmed that.
Right.
That would have been tasty. I guess you couldn't, because we would have all censored ourselves.
Well, nowadays what you should do is you should. And I'm saying you, Bill, but I'm just saying you should record it as a podcast, like behind the scenes with William Sadler. That's what you should call it.
Oh, I see. All right, I'll keep that in mind.
It's a shame. I don't know what your middle name is, Bill, but if it began with T, you could have BTS with BTS. But I suppose you don't have.
It is T. My middle name is Thomas.
Okay, well, there we go then. BTS with BTS. Bill Thomas Sadler.
BTS. Oh, behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes with Bill Thomas Sadler. BTS with BTS.
Okay.
That's your podcast idea right there.
Perfect.
Well, look, no, VFW was a great success, and I really enjoyed it. And I think it'll play to the people who are still watching, Above the Law and Demon Knight and films like that you have been in before. They'll get a big kick out of this one. Obviously, last year, I wanted to say a huge congratulations for When They See Us. Ava DuVernay is one of my favorite directors working today, and that miniseries. It's funny. It seems. Obviously, because of the subject matter, the conversation is quite rightly around the subject matter as it should be. So it can often seem almost frivolous to applaud just the filmmaking. But, I mean, it was impeccably acted and incredibly written, stunningly photographed, and just amazingly powerful. I mean, the fact that hasn't won all of the awards and set the benchmark for TV, film, miniseries, whatever, kind of blows my mind because it was incredible. And I had the pleasure of being on the red carpet line for Selmo, Ava's first movie when it came out, and I've been a fan of hers ever since. And this was just incredible. So I just wanted to say for your role in that was just amazing.
Thank
and
you.
if you could talk a little bit about working with Ava, that would be fascinating.
Ava, it was the second time that I worked with Ava. I did a pilot for her a couple of years before. She's a force of nature. She is so lovely on the set. She gives you space. She pulls performances out of people in these wonderful ways. She gets her arms around the whole scene, and makes everyone feel you're never in question about who's in charge or what's happening or whatever. She's a great general, in the trenches. And I'll tell you, for example, the scene with the young man who was his name Asante. We're questioning him, and I play one of the detectives.
Yes.
And we're interrogating him, trying to get him. And he had never acted before. He was like 14 years old. And Ava came over to me and said, she took me aside before we shot. It was his Asante's close-up.
Yeah.
And she took me aside and said, I want you to scare the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And so I did. It was, but she trusted me. She trusted me that I could, but do it with love. We're still a team. And so I did. I scared the crap out of him, and then when it was over, I sat down next to Asante and said, "Are you okay? I didn't mean any of that."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the child actors, the teen actors in that were just mind-boggling.
They were so lovely. It was so lovely, and she took such good care of each and every one of us.
Yeah.
She makes you feel like you're the most important character in the movie, and this moment is the most important moment. And just her attention to detail. This project meant a great deal to her, and it ended up meaning a great deal to all of us.
Right.
I was very proud to have been part of it.
And it's interesting, obviously on Twitter, you obviously can share some political things. You've done a voice on, or several voices on, our cartoon president. You're in When They See Us. You're obviously doing a Higher Loyalty in Toronto, and we were speaking at the beginning sort of about just the times in which we live. Do you feel, is it just that this work is coming up and you're jumping at it, or do you feel a responsibility and you're kind of seeking out that work? Is it 6 of one, half a dozen of the other?
I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. These are opportunities, and they're coming. They're offers. They're not. I haven't gone auditioning, for these things. These are people that call me up, say, "Would you like to do this? Would he be interested in being a part of this project?" And when it's something like, when Ava calls, you go.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, of course.
I mean, Ava wants you to be a part of. I think it was historic. I don't know why the awards went the way they went. I don't understand them at all, and they've. There's politics involved, or what it is.
Yeah,
it doesn't diminish. It doesn't diminish the work. It doesn't diminish the intent or the quality or the caliber of the work.
Not at all.
Or the amount of love, or the impact. Maybe it impacts the sale of the work.
Yeah, there seems to be. I mean, maybe it got snarled. I don't know, and I don't like to speculate because, like I say, the work was phenomenal. I loved the work. I'll watch it and watch it. So that doesn't matter. But
I did a movie a long time ago. I did The Shawshank Redemption.
Yes,
and it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and it didn't win any. Nothing.
Well, it made me laugh. We actually watched that movie yesterday. I knew I was talking to you, but it was one of those rainy Saturdays in New York, and Kim and I had been talking about your work, my wife and I, and we just thought, Shawshank Redemption would be perfect for this afternoon. And what was funny was looking into it, and I knew the story behind it. I remember when it came out, but. Looking into it, one of the complaints people had about it when it first came out was that it was too long. The irony being is that every movie is now longer than Shawshank Redemption. Every movie is 3 hours long these days, so it's...
I just watched The Irishman, and I was like, oh my goodness, guys, Jesus.
Yeah.
Can't you kill them faster?
Yeah. No, again, great work and phenomenal to see all those guys back together, but... I think 20 minutes, 30 minutes needed to get cut out.
I thought so. I mean, okay. No one's going to stick their head in the room and tell Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro, "Hey guys, could you pick it up a little?"
Yeah. Could you give us less of all of you guys?
Could you give us less? Just a smidge.
And it was great. I mean, I look, no disrespect. I thought there was a phenomenal performance from all of them in there. But
I did too, and I thought it was the best thing I've ever seen Pesci do. I've never seen him play that character.
No, indeed.
He was, there was a lot to recommend that movie, but
the length. Yeah, no, completely. Anyway, but it's funny that
I'm going to have to jump in a few minutes.
Okay. So let's very quick then. Very quick before we finish. Bill and Ted 3. Very quickly, what can you tell us? Is your part a cameo or more in line with a fleshed out part like Bogus Journey? They were kind of the two big. So have you seen it? What can you tell us? And the size of your part. That's kind of what I'm interested in.
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
We shot it back in August.
Okay.
In New Orleans. And I come in late in the film. I suppose you could call it a cameo. It's I'm not all the way through the film. I don't know how to describe the last. I'm in the last quarter or something.
Okay.
Of it. So, but I am there.
Good.
And it was great fun. After 30 years, it was.
Has it been 30 years since Bogus Journey?
I think so. Yeah, it came out in '91.
I always forget how early those movies are for me.
We shot it in 1990.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, it's been 30 years.
Yeah. So
that's great.
And in fact, I almost didn't do the first one because I auditioned and they said they thought I was too young.
Right. No, I remember you saying, yeah.
I told that story. I had to put makeup on and go and audition again.
Yeah.
So that they thought I was old enough. I don't think it had to do with old. It had to do with funny.
Well, I'm glad we're getting to see Bill and Ted on the big and Death on the big screen again this year. That's definitely one that's high on my. And I'm not a big one for nostalgia filmmaking, but I think once every 30 years it's fine if you guys want to get together and do another one. I think that's fantastic, and I think that everyone has that part of them in them where they're like, oh, give us just a little bit more of that thing that we love, and so so it's fantastic to have you guys back together.
I think it was a really beautifully written script.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the cast. I love the script. And it's Keanu and Alex again. They're just a bit older.
Yeah.
And they're facing that. They have new issues now that they didn't have when they were in high school, which is fun. And they time travel again. I don't know how much I can't really tell you too much about it, but
no.
We're looking forward to it. I know that the George Carlin, missing George Carlin was a hurdle that the writers, Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson, had to overcome. It's like, what do we do about Rufus? But I think they handled it beautifully.
Yeah,
I will say that. What I did do in the movie, although it's toward the end, and it's not all the way through the movie, but what I did end up doing was really, really fun.
Good. Do you get to play bass again? Do you get to play bass again?
I get to play the bass a lot.
Yes, I like that.
2 out of 3 times I play the bass.
Nice. I do love that. You have sunk my battleship. I say that to my friend all the time. I can't stop quoting that.
These are historic lines.
I know. So the very, very last question I had was a silly question, but I want, just because I like to see you in as many movies as possible. Have you shown Keanu Reeves VFW so he can put you in John Wick 4? That's what I want to know. to tie the whole thing up.
No, I haven't shown Keanu that movie. I don't have a copy of that movie. Not yet.
Well, if you see Keanu
but I
again,
I really am looking forward to it. So it comes out Valentine's Day. So, and it's a perfect date movie if your date is into 90s action guys fighting mutant punks. I can't think of a better way to spend Valentine's Day.
I'm lucky. My birthday falls on February 12th, and normally around about Valentine's Day, there's always like some alternative programming type movie that comes out. There's normally like a good, either a B movie or an indie movie or a weird genre film, because we're so used to all the awards movies coming out throughout November, December, January that I think in February the slates kind of go, let's put a couple of mad genre films in, and so it always seems to hit around my birthday, which makes me happy. But
anyways,
and Come to Daddy is the other one that's coming out in February. Ant Timpson made that with Elijah Wood in it, and I saw that last year at the New York Film Festival, and that's another great one. So Come to Daddy VFW would be my after movie diner double bill suggestion for people.
Perfect.
Well, Bill, Mr. Sadler, it has been an absolute thrill to talk to you again. I hope we can do this every 6 years, but thank you so much for being on the show and your support of the show, and and just your continued work. We absolutely love watching your work, whether it's on the big or small screen. And so just please keep doing what you're doing, because we're big fans here.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. Let's not wait 6 years.
Okay,
we can
happily.
do this again, like 3 years.
Okay, 3 years. It's a deal. It's a deal.
Okay.
Catch you on social media, sir, and have a good time.
All righty. Thanks.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Bye now. And if you've liked this interview, you can find other interviews like it over at aftermoviediner.com. Also, if you've enjoyed this show, don't forget to look up Booth Talk on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, wherever podcasts are found, and rate and review us. You can also support the show by going over to patreon.com/aftermoviediner. That's patreon.com/aftermoviediner. Thanks so much for listening. Look forward to our next interview very soon.